All right. How y'all doing? Good. All right, so we're going to listen to 2 speaker tapes. One of them is about 25 minutes. The other is probably about 30 minutes. It's 15 minutes in the first half and then 15 in the end. And I want you to have your books open. First, just open it to page 70. And then Mark Houston's going to read some with us. But he'll tell you what page he's on and you'll be able to follow along. Or I'll even pause the video and make sure everybody got what page we're on. So if you haven't done your 5th step yet, that's okay. But tonight's homework, let me let her in. Hold on one second. All right. Hey, Andrea. Okay. So tonight's homework, even if you haven't done step 5 with me yet, you can still do it. Just do it in addition to the step 5 or the step 4 inventory. But I'll talk about the homework at the end. But don't worry if you haven't done your 5th step yet. I just wanted to put that out there. All right. So yes, we're going to listen to Sandy Beach, I think. And we're going to listen in about 25 minutes. And I'll give you reference to these in our group chat if you want to listen to them later. All right, and then this one, I just kind of like picked it up. So whatever he's finishing saying might not make sense if I didn't pick it up in the right spot, but everything else will make sense. Whoops, not that. And it will probably take us the full hour here today, so. All right.
Great program because we thought we were singled out for this adversity, and it turns out we were singled out for this wonderful reward. It's one of the great paradoxes of being an alcoholic. The chosen people were the drunks, and it's a real irony. And when it happens to you, you're going to understand that. If a big cop pulls you over for drunk driving, at the time, you saw him as an interference. Later on, you're going to see him as a messenger from God who was sent down to pull you out of the hellhole you've been living in and send you on this great road called sobriety. But when it happens, it doesn't look like that. My sponsor didn't look like a great messenger from anywhere. I thought he was the force from hell. You know what I mean? So anyway, we said that's the doorway through. So the rest of the steps take us down this journey. And initially, this higher power may be our AA group, it may be our sponsor, or whatever it is, but it's got to be something beyond ourselves. But ironically, even though we cannot stay sober on our own, we alone are the only thing that's going to keep us sober. It's one of those paradoxes. There's a sentence somewhere where it says, you alone can't do it, but you alone must do it. So on your own, there's no way you can stay sober, but you're the only one that can get you to a meeting. You're the only one who can do the steps. So it's totally up to me to take these actions where I will be given the gift of sobriety, but there's no way that I can stay sober on my own. So it's one of these things where I've got to do it, but I can't do it by myself. And so we start down this road through these 12 steps to find this higher power after we decide that we're going to give this a shot in the second step and then make a decision that this has to be a top priority. the top priority has to be AA, sobriety, learning how and taking the actions to give us access to a power to produce this sobriety. And we go, well, now where am I going to find this power? Whatever it is. And of course, for those of you that are new, let me say this. There is no AA God. AA does not try to convince you of the existence of God. We don't try to teach you about who God is. Our specialty is to convince you of the need for God. That's our specialty. And we just show you what it is to be an alcoholic and to be powerless and to be caught in a position where you either have to change your mind about a higher power or go down the tubes. I mean, that's sort of where we are when we arrive here. So we go through the intellectual debate of, am I going to change my mind about a higher power? Oh, my God, what a struggle that is. And then later on we see how funny it was that we would have this huge debate. And then we find out we don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to go off to Tibet or off to anywhere to find this higher power, that it's the fundamental idea of a higher power was inside of us all along. It's been there since we were little kids. It was born in us. We talk about alcohol being a threefold illness, mental, physical, and spiritual, and it goes after all three parts of us. And the AA program goes after the spiritual side and works on that first, and it's amazing how everything else seems to straighten out. So we have that dimension to ourselves, the mental, physical, and spiritual. It's just that we ignored the spiritual. We just missed it. We said, I'm not interested in that. I got to get $1 million. I'll get around to that later. And we left that part of ourselves sort of unattended. Many of us denied that we even had that part. I'm not that kind of a person. I'm just a Bobby badass, and I just go around and I'm not into that. But the problem was, we were. The problem was, there was part of us that didn't like the way we were living. That's why we felt so bad at night. We'd try to stay, I don't care, I can live any way I want. But there was part of us that said, no, you can't. This isn't good. You're not living the way you should be. You're not the kind of person. And that was the part of us that was our conscience or the spiritual side or whatever you want to call it. That's the part that the program's going to go after now. So this fundamental idea of a higher power is inside of us. And the steps simply remove all the blockages to this. It's not a complicated thing. We don't have to learn it. It's like, the best analogy I can think of is, you're in a hospital, you got the best doctors in the world, they got you in an oxygen tent, and one of your visitors is standing on the hose. And we're trying to, the doctors are all going, what's wrong? You're there trying to breathe, and we're trying to figure out, my God, we better get more experts in here and figure out this person may die soon. They got this serious thing, and we're trying to understand what it is. And then somebody says, he's stepping on the hose. And then as soon as he gets his foot off of there, the oxygen comes in, everything is fine. That's where we are spiritually. We have stepped on our own oxygen hose. And then we misdiagnose that. Oh, God, did we misdiagnose that? My problem is not a stepped-on hose. My problem is my parents were mean to me. My problem is she left me. My problem is society doesn't understand me. My problem is... And then we go, no, I think that somebody's on your hose over here. So all through the rest of your sobriety, we're going to find that people are going to say, before you analyze anything, check the hose. All through the rest of your sobriety. That's what first things first means. Check the spiritual condition first. Is somebody on the hose? Because sometimes, if we go unblock the hose, there aren't any problems left. There aren't any problems left. This is what spirituality is like. It's just, we go open up the channel, and then the problems aren't there anymore. Because we had misdiagnosed them. It really wasn't all these other things. It was simply, we had been deprived of the resources that we needed in order to see that everything was all right. And when that was drained from us, we started seeing that everything wasn't all right. You see what I mean? Left where it's just me looking at the world. It looks threatening, intimidating, confusing, doesn't make sense. I have no purpose in life. I don't understand what's going on. And then somebody says, oh, anybody on your hose? And then we go straighten that out. And that's what we do in the steps. It turns out we don't have to go anywhere except to find out what's blocking us. And in AA, we inventory these blockages. We call them character defects. You can call them anything you want. The end result is they block out a higher power. That is it, bottom line. You can feel guilty about your character defects if you want. You can claim you don't have any if you want. But the point is, they're there. They are given to all human beings. We talked about these last week. They come from our basic instinctual drives, which were put in us when we were arrived here as little babies. And these drives are there to make sure that we move ahead as human beings. And they're there, they're the drives for sex, for a place in society, and the drive to feel secure. And everybody has those. They came out. Now, these drives, as they provide us the raw energy to be human beings, sometimes get out of control. And they end up being in charge. And so we intended to work all afternoon, but the sexual drive said, why don't we take the afternoon off? And then we had to lie about where we were, and then we got fired, and then we got in trouble. God damn it, why did I do that, and this and that? And who was in charge? One of our drives was in charge. And it's a very complicated process that where the drives are no longer in charge, but the human being is. And this process is very foreign to AA members. It's called growing up. And this is not a trademark of AA members. People don't serve AA and go, very grown up, very grown up. It's not. Because we found a shortcut to growing up. It was called drinking. And why, you just boom. And so what we're inventorying is where these instinctual drives, character defects are out of control, where they're just on a rampage. And in step 4 in the 12 is called the instincts on the rampage balk at investigation. They don't really want to be looked at. So last week we were looking at what these blockages are. Fearless and searching moral inventory of ourselves. And we listed down the standard character defects. Everybody has the standard ones. You don't have a unique one. I mean, there's just so many. You can list sex, security, society, pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, sloth. Now, whatever way you want, the 7 deadly sins, as Bill suggests, these are just different ways of looking at where I'm out of harmony with other people, where I'm being blocked, where I have no control of my life, and my emotions are just taking me in all kinds of different directions. And so that's what we did last week, was inventory all of this. And we said at the end of this fearless moral inventory, very often at the top of this written list, we have written down all these blockages, is a word called rationalization. Well, if rationalization is at the top of the list, how could the list be worth anything? I mean, what value? And that's why the 4th step doesn't really produce any great elation or any great thing. There are certain landmark steps in AA where, boom, there are results that you feel in your sobriety. Step 4 isn't one of them. Sometimes you end up with that thing and you just go, God, there's a lot wrong. You almost can have a little bit of a depression at the end of doing this. And you got to keep hanging in there because this isn't. You don't learn anything. The point isn't to learn anything. The point is to follow instructions. Because we're going to take certain actions to enable these to be removed. Remember, this is what's going to happen. We're not going to understand them. We don't have anything to do about getting rid of them. We just take these steps, and then they will be removed. And the beginning of getting them removed is in the step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. That's what we're talking about. We did this inventory. Now we're going to admit to God, ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Clearly, it doesn't take anybody, I don't care if you've only been here a week, you can spot the flaw in the fifth step. The hard part, right? Another human being. That's the hard part of the fifth step. It would be a much easier step, and it really would be a lot better if it just said, admit it to ourselves and to God, the exact nature of our wrongs. Wouldn't it be a lot easier step to take than to involve another human being? Such is the power of the ego that doesn't want to go talk to another human being and let them find out that there might be something wrong with me. We end up with a thing called secrets. And each person has some secrets, and they're distressing memories or things that have happened or that we've done. And we, in our own minds, have made a judgment that these secrets ought to go to the grave with us, just for the sake of society. You know what I'm saying? So the world won't know they have this horrible person in their midst. And so we have things that we just have never shared. And they become burdens. They become a great threat to our sobriety. Bill writes in the big book, and the 12 and 12, that people who don't take a fifth step are really, the first thing that's liable to happen is they won't keep staying sober. Because this burden becomes heavier and heavier the longer we stay sober. The reason this burden is so heavy is that we have said this is a heavy burden because it can't be shared. What makes these incidents, or whatever you want to call them, terrible is the fact that we said they couldn't be shared. As soon as they're shared, they go into another category. Well, it must not have been so bad because I was able to share it. I mean, it's just a mind game that we played with ourselves, but that's one of the immediate things that happen. Now, Bill writes in the 12 and 12 that very often we'll try and find a way around this. And I think if I could paraphrase what he suggests, he said, very often, this is what we'll do in an attempt to take a fifth step. And I'll take my fifth step with all of you this morning, if you don't mind. So, here it comes. You name it, I did it. Boy, feels great to get that off my chest. I'll tell you that. I've been carrying that burden around for years, and it just felt wonderful. And about this time, somebody in the back of the room goes, could you be a little more specific? No, I don't really get it. Hell, people do these things. I did it. I mean, God, I can't imagine anything that I haven't done. So Bill writes, we make a general admission of things, hoping to avoid sitting down and talking. What are we liable to get out of this? I mean, it boils down to making an appointment with someone and taking our four-step list and going over and sitting down and saying, I'm here, if it's not an AA member, I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous, this is how you stay sober, I've inventoried, just so you're comfortable with this whole thing. But the point is to eventually get our courage together and go over and share. And Bill writes in 12 and 12, what are we going to get out of this? What is the thing? Number one was this, get rid of this tremendous sense of isolation. Almost every alcoholic that I've run into and that we hear about in AA develops this sense of isolation, that somehow we just withdraw and we're not quite in, and we don't fit in like it looks like other people are fitting in. And step 5 is where we get rid of this tremendous sense of isolation. We may think we got rid of it by just going to meetings. Sometimes when you come into AA, you have that feeling, well, I don't belong anywhere, and then you join AA, and it's almost as that newcomer, and everybody hugs you and says, oh, Susie, we're so glad you're here. It's wonderful. Everybody, Susie, this is Susie. She's new. Get her a cup of coffee. Sit down. Here's my phone number. We'll get you the meeting. And you go, now this is more like it. This is the way the world ought to be. You know what I mean? And you just sort of feel, I belong. I have that wonderful sense of belonging. And boy, Keith, that group is just hugging you every day. But you get about 3 months of this. And then Larry joins the group. And all of a sudden, these two-faced clowns abandon you, and they're all hugging Larry. And then you go, I knew that wasn't going to last. And so that sense of belonging or replaced with, Bill writes in here, anxious apartness. I'm in, but I'm not really in. Well, the fifth step is a wonderful device to get rid of this sense of isolation. And the second thing was an ability to not only forgive other people, but to forgive ourselves takes place in this fifth step. That is one of the great things that happens, is the ability not only to forgive ourselves, but to understand other human beings and to be able to forgive them and to see the dynamics of being a human being and the power of forgiveness in making us comfortable. And the last thing was humility. This is the beginning of our first contact with one of the precious things in the program called humility. And in step 5, Bill writes it about it's sort of a full awareness of who we are and who we can become. It's sort of being able to see both things at once, where I am and where I can be. And this is to recognize the limits of where I can be as a human and how far I can go if I'm willing to accept a higher power. And we just get to see that for the first time in step 5. I like to think about step 5 this way, that, and it's one of the great lessons that I think we learned in AA, and it has to do with sharing. Let's face it, this step is heavy-duty sharing. And even when you're new, you've learned about sharing. You start blurting out your whole drinking story for the first time. You remember the freedom of that? When you finally found somebody who drank like you did, and you said, oh my God, well I hid booze in the toilet too. And and then, boy, remember the wonderful feeling when that came rushing out and you shared about yourself and you were totally accepted, even though you had totally shared and changed our whole... And that was just with drinking. Now we're going to do it with all the rest of our lives. When I was in the Marine Corps and I was flying, I was in a photo.
I think I'll stop it right there. So he was mainly talking about one aspect of what keeps us blocked off. So on page 64, where it talks about being able to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. And Sandy Beach talks about how our character defects are what blocks us off from God. And they come out of, like we read in the step 4 in the 12 and 12, those basic natural instincts. Let me go to that, because I know Jen wasn't there. And I still haven't recorded a step 4, so just give me a minute. It will take about an hour to get through that one. All right, so it says, creation gave us instincts for a purpose. Without them, we wouldn't be complete human beings. And then it talks about, so these desires for the sex relation, for material and emotional security, and for companionship are perfectly necessary and right, and surely God-given. Yet these instincts, so necessary for our existence, often far exceed their proper functions. Powerfully, blindly, many times subtly, they drive us, dominate us, and insist upon ruling our lives. And that's where this inventory gets down to. It goes to those character defects that played a part, that ruled us and dominated us and insisted upon ruling every relationship we were in. And I like what he was talking about with the rationalization. That the rationalization was at the top of our list with all of them. And I didn't even actually label it or even mention it to any of y'all. But rationalization is the action of attempting to explain or justify behavior or an attitude. So if I have a resentment, of course I'm rationalizing because I'm blaming. I'm saying that I don't have a part. This is all them. But when we truly get down and get honest with somebody and put this on in black and white on paper, then we do see how we're trying to explain and justify why I have the number one offender, why I'm killing myself with this resentment. And then we're going to go into Mark Houston. And Mark Houston talks about how resentments are the number one offender and how that is what blocks us off from God. And I just absolutely love his description. So we're going to listen to about 15 minutes on one part, and this is all about the resentments, and he's going to be reading some out of the book, and then we're going to move on to fears. I believe he starts off with page 70, so if you want to go ahead and get your book open to 70, and then whenever I change and go to the end of the tape, we'll be on a different page, and I'll let you know what that is. But go ahead and turn to page 70. Well, I didn't have it ready. Sorry, y'all. Y'all bear with me while I get this together. We'll just start
When
here.
you die, you will be aware of it. Everything is connected. So, if I'm angry at Richard, if I'm resentful, not angry. Resent means to revisit. Anger's in the moment, it passes. But then
What we just missed was he was saying how everybody is connected. And let me get what he said verbatim. I had notes. Hold on one second. Because I don't know exactly where he starts off on this. Okay, let's see. I think I'm gonna have to go back some because I do want y'all to hear what he was talking about. All right, I'm just gonna go back. Yes, they are, and I'll post them in the chat here momentarily. All right, let's see. Just gonna go back a little bit. I know I don't have to go all the way back to 11, but I do want y'all to hear this, so hopefully I can find it.
start reading this to me in the first person.
There it is.
So that it has.
All right, so we're on page 70.
There's just the program, and it's outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, from whence all 12-step programs have sprang, and it works. So we open up the big book, and we look toward the next to the last paragraph on page 70, and I begin to have them start reading this to me in the first person so that it has meaning. So it starts to sound like this. If I have been thorough about my personal inventory, I've written down a lot. I have listed and analyzed my resentments. I have begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. And I like to stop. Who's written a resentment inventory? Okay. Jay, why?
Underline futility and fatality. And he's about to talk about this.
Why are your resentments futile? Futile. Okay, that's one aspect. Why else would resentments be futile? Resentments are always about something out there, right? What's the futility of that? Yeah, dude. Bingo. We have absolutely no control over another human being, an institution, or a principle. None. Hence the futility of it. What's the fatality of the resentments? Remember that? Remember what the big book says resentments do? Yeah, because they block you off from the sunlight of the Spirit, meaning the power of God. See, here's why. This is a little sidebar. I realize that a lot of you think that you're separate from everybody and everything. What if the truth is that everything is connected and you're not? Let's work on the premise that perhaps that is the truth. I hope a lot of you wake up to that truth before you die. Because when you die, you will be aware of it. Everything is connected. So, if I'm angry at Richard, if I'm resentful, not angry, resent needs to revisit. Anger's in the moment, it passes. But then the mind plays it over, the injustice, correct? Now I've got a resentment. Here's why you get blocked. Because everything's connected, and God is in Richard, so when I block from Richard, I block from God. One resentment. What if you had 50? Do the math. That's why it took me a long time to figure out, why do resentments, the big book says resentments is the #1 offender, meaning a lot of you have relapse history. You all need to understand something. Every one of you is relapsing behind resentments. And the reason is, when you get resentful, you are blocked from God. If you're blocked from God, go to a strange mental blank spot, you'll drink and do drugs, won't you? So I don't have the luxury of one, because I don't have the luxury to be blocked. That's why a resentment is fatal for me. That's why I'll take pen to paper in the drop of a hat.
So, real quick, he said those strange mental blank spots. I don't know if any of y'all remember us talking about that and more about alcoholism. All the people that were relapsing, and the reason why is those strange, peculiar mental twists, those strange mental blank spots. So that's how I just keep staying blocked off from God because of my resentments. And if I don't get rid of them, then there's a blockage there. So I'm going to have those blank spots where I forget who I am, where I don't care about what's going on or what I'm going to do with this first drink. And then there sets that terrible cycle in motion. So he just said that is why he continues, that he will put pen to paper at the drop of a hat. So even like I did my second 4-step with a different lady, but I had about 7 names on there that were not on my first inventory. So we are not, what is that word? We can definitely create some more resentments going on. So always, and we'll read about this when we get to step 10, but anytime that we have something going on, we immediately call our sponsor. It's like doing a 5th step all over again, but you just do it immediately. You write out the 4 columns, you find your part. Anytime you're disturbed and someone pisses you off, write a 4-step on it. Do all those columns and then call me. Say, I just had to do a 4-step on blah, blah, blah. This is what's going on. This is my part. And get rid of it so you don't stay blocked.
Particularly people that have long time that I work with and sponsor. A lot of them haven't written inventory in years. They're so dry, if you light a match around them, they would ignite. And they're always packed full of resentments, which means they're blocked. So they can't be present. So I like to talk about why our resentments are both futile and ultimately why they are fatal. When you guys do your evening review, if your mind's still replaying an injustice that a member of the community inflicted upon you, if this happens for about 3 nights, you better write some 4-column inventory to get free of it. So you guys ought to be doing a lot of writing while you're here. I can't imagine you wouldn't be. Whether you're writing about the program directors being here, I don't care. But I can't imagine you guys being here and not writing some inventory almost 2-3 times a week. It says, I commence to see their terrible destructiveness, meaning your resentments. I have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even my enemies, for I look on them as sick people. Do you understand what the book means when it says, at this point you're at page 70 of the big book, and it's implying that you're awake to the fact that these people you're resentful at are sick. Do you understand what the book means there? Yes or no? All right. Let me ask it this way. If somebody was really spiritually awake and somebody really understood that we're all connected, would they ever do anything to harm you? Bingo. Because if I harm Jeffrey, I harm me. Who would do that except a person who's spiritually sick or spiritually asleep? That's what it means. We've all had things done to us by people that are not right and that are wrong and that caused harm. Everyone in this room has had that happen. Those actions were not done by people who were spiritually awake. They were done by people who are spiritually sick, like us. So that's what the book's trying to see.
That's huge for us as alcoholics. That's why you hear in the rooms, and I've said this before, why we can say that we are grateful alcoholics, grateful for this program, because all those other sick people out there that suffer from this same spiritual malady, the same blockage, will never have a program to get through their crap. We do.
The only way you can have patience, tolerance, and goodwill toward an enemy, that makes sense, is to finally understand nobody is intentionally doing anything. All of the suffering and the wars and the killing is done by people who are sound asleep, who have no idea that we're all connected. None whatsoever. They are spiritually sick, and that's how it shows up. It says, I've listed the people I've hurt by my conduct. That was in my inventory list, and I'm willing to straighten out the past if I can. In this book, I read again and again, the faith did for me what I could not do for myself. Do I believe that? This time, by page 70, you should have some belief in that. Number one, you're here. Number two, you're sober. It says, I hope I am convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked me off from him. Your self-will cannot eliminate your self-will. That's why when one of you says to us, thanks for the information, I'll take it from here. What you're really saying to us is, my self-will will now manage this. Thank you very much for the information. Only God can remove whatever self-will has me blocked off from God. And the methodology you and I were given was write inventory and do a fifth step. 4 and 5, 4 and 5, 4 and 5. It says if I've already made a decision, third step, and an inventory of my grocery handicaps, fourth step, I've made a good beginning. That being so, I've swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about myself. Turn to chapter 6, into action. I believe there's 7 steps discussed in chapter 6. So having made my personal inventory, what shall I do about it? You see how I'm reading this in first person? It says I've been trying to get a new attitude, second step. A new relationship with my Creator, third step. To discover the obstacles in my path, fourth step. I've admitted certain defects, fourth step. I have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. Selfishness, self-centered is the root of my problems. I have put my finger on the weak items in my personal inventory. Now this next sentence is the line that separates a spiritual experience from therapy or clinical work. Now these are about to be cast out. If you don't believe me when you leave here, go sit across from a psychiatrist, a PhD, or a master level therapist. Say, look, I'll make a deal with you. I'll pay you $100 an hour. I want to explain my defects to you, and then you'll cast them out. They'll probably send you for a mental evaluation. However, this process, my experience is they get cast out. What an incredible thing. They get cast out. This requires action on my part, which when completed will mean that I have admitted to God, to myself, and to another human being the exact nature of my defects. Your fourth column, third and fourth column, your fears, your selfish, self-centered sexual misconduct. This brings us to the fifth step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing my defects with another person. I may think I've done well enough in admitting these things to myself. There's doubt about that. In actual practice, I usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. I thought it necessary to go much further. I will be more reconciled to discussing myself with another person when I see good reasons why I should do so. The best reason first, if I skip this vital step, I may not overcome drinking. Big Book starts warning you in the latter steps that you're not going to overcome drinking if you don't do them. Time after time, newcomers and old-timers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. Pay attention to that sentence, gentlemen. It's describing somebody who left a bunch of stuff out in the fifth step, went on with the work, and still got drunk. We think the reason is they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but they hung on to some of the worst items in stock. By the way, my experience, the worst items in stock are normally tied into your sex inventory. Whenever I have someone sitting across from me and I pick up on a lot of fear, I have a tendency to address that issue head on. And I'll say to them, you seemed a little restless. You seem fearful. What happened to be something on your sex inventory? 99% of the time they go, yes. And I say, well, let me share a few little tidbits of my experience. And I typically get done sharing and they smile and they go, mine isn't anywhere close to yours. Here's what it was. They get relaxed. Now we can do the inventory. I can tell you, having listened to, well, matter of fact, I asked a priest one time, I said, do you ever hear anything new? And he said, no. And I said, I don't either. There isn't anything any of you have ever done that hasn't been done by probably most people sitting in the room. It's not unique to you, I assure you. So you can let go of that when you do the fifth step. So it talks about, I only thought I had lost my egoism and fear. I only thought that I had humbled myself. But I had not learned enough humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense I find necessary till I told someone else all my life story. And we tell our life story by writing the 3 inventories and sharing it with somebody. More than most people, I lead a double life. I'm very much the actor. To the outer world, I present my stage character or characters. This is the one I like you to see. I want to enjoy a certain reputation, but I know in my heart that I don't deserve it. So the inconsistency between what I want you to think I am and who I really am is made worse by the things I do in my sprees. Coming to my senses, drunk or sober, I am revolted at certain episodes I vaguely remember. These memories are a nightmare. I tremble to think someone might have observed me. So as fast as I can, I push these memories far inside myself. I hope they will never see the light of day. I'm under...
I'm just going to stop that right there. Definitely listen to this in your free time. We only got 10 minutes, so I want to, and Andrea doesn't have the option to listen to this online, so I'm going to share something that is very powerful, I think. It's at the end of this tape, and I'm just going to share it. And it's talking about, so please go back and listen to this. You can start at 26 minutes in is where we stopped. And the tape is called Mark Houston. And I'll put this in the chat in a second too. Mark Houston, the 5th step. So 26 minutes in, Mark Houston, 5th step. All right. Hopefully I can find exactly where he was talking about this, but I'm pretty sure it was at the very end. Turn to page 68. This is a very powerful message on our fear inventory. Just absolutely powerful. So let's go check it out. And it's going to be about 7 minutes, and then we'll assign the homework.
For I am now on a different basis. I'm on the basis.
Oh, I went too far. Hold on 1 minute. We'll start right here.
It does. It scares me way, way too much. So I need God right in the middle of that. So I'm going to make a list of all my fears. And then it says, don't I have these fears because self-reliance failed me? And I see the truth of that. I'm relying on Mark. Self-reliance is good as far as it goes, but it doesn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it doesn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it makes his copies worse. Now I have the guy read the fear inventory. Column 1, he reads the fear. And I say, why do you have it? I make him tell me. And we go through the fear inventory. When we're done, we come back and read these next 2 paragraphs. They are so powerful.
So powerful.
Because here's your formula for fear, gentlemen. It says, perhaps there's a better way of what? Dealing with fear. For I am now on a different basis. I'm on the basis of trusting and relying upon God. Now, I don't know what kind of God you got. I'll tell you what kind I got. He's about 20 foot tall anytime I want. I put my arm right here. He puts his hand on my head, and nothing touches me. Except when my Father wants to touch me. Nothing, gentlemen. Ain't no whiskey touching me. Ain't no dope. Ain't no evil people. Nothing touches me. That's the kind of God I got. And I absolutely trust and rely on God. Not humans. Because humans just do what they do. They'll disappoint you. They'll let you down. Blah, blah, blah. God will never do that. And I got my arm right here, and he's got his hand on me and his power. And God protects me and keeps me safe and gives me guidance. I never think about drinking. I never think about doing dope. Ever. I hope you get that kind of God. And that God is not punity at all. That God loves me unconditionally. God doesn't understand. God, what kind of God would punish you if you're going through life sound asleep, dreaming you're awake, making mistakes? I don't want that kind of God. But that's the kind of God I got in my life. Whiskey can't touch me. Dope can't touch me. Bad people can't touch me. It ain't gonna happen. Darkness goes away from me, gets driven away from me. By what? By this loving hand, this power that surrounds me all the time, that I absolutely trust and rely upon. Ooh, get you vibrating. I trust infinite God rather than my finite self. Check this out. I'm in the world to play the role he assigns. Some of you are assigning yourself roles. I really hope you let go of it. How's it show up? Where you go when you leave here, what you do, you're assigning yourself a role. Let it go. Let it unfold. I'm in the world to play the role God assigns. You know why I accepted that? Because when I assign myself roles, I don't wind up in good places. I go to nut houses. I go to rehabs. I get divorced a lot. I'm broke. I quit. I let God assign me the role that God wants to give me. It says, check this out. Just to the extent that I do as I think God would have me and humbly rely on God, will God enable me to match calamity with serenity. I never apologize to anyone for depending upon my Creator. I can laugh at those who think spirituality is the way of weakness. Paradoxically, spirituality is the way of strength. Now, gentlemen, here's the definition of courage. Far different than what I used to think it was. The verdict of the ages is faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. That's courage. When she leaves, and the job leaves, and mom dies, and dad dies, and you're dying of cancer, can you trust God? You're at MHR, and you want to be somewhere else, or you're lonely, and you miss your family, so what? Can you trust God? Men of faith have courage. They trust their God. And stop relying on yourself. Can God keep you sober? You better believe it. Can God keep you clean and off dope? You better believe it. Men of faith have courage. They trust their God. Not mom, not dad, not her, not the money, God. That's the definition of courage, gentlemen. Best definition I've ever heard in my experiences. It's the truth. Men of faith have courage, and the courage is they trust their God. Right when your back's up against the wall, all hell's coming at you. Yeah, God, bring it on. Remember I told you, if God wants something to touch me, it's going to touch me. I don't care. I turn to God. Great pain, great suffering. So what? Bring it on. Men of faith have courage. They trust their God. It says, I never apologize for God. Now check this next sentence. Instead, I let God demonstrate through Mark what God can do. Wow. God demonstrates through me what God can do. You work the steps, you become a hollow bone, so God can demonstrate. My God, when I sobered up in 1982, I had brain damage, kidney damage, liver damage, looked like a bloated whale, everything I own's in a duffel bag. And I do this work, and I get to let God demonstrate through me what God can do. Even to opening this place, to get to travel all over the world, to talk about God in the 12 steps, to get a book published, to have money in the bank, to have relationships. I get to let God demonstrate through me what God can do. It's not about what Mark can do. You get that? See? Think about that, Joe. You get to demonstrate. You get to let God demonstrate through you what God can do. Wow, what an amazing thing. See, it's not about you anymore. Our part is easy. Do the steps, take the course of action, and the rest is done to you and through you. Do you get that? You've all been trying to do way too much of this. Our part is simple. Our part is just go to the gym. 2 months later, you go, wow, I'm buff. It's that simple. Seriously, it's that simple. The big book's the trainer. Go to the gym, do it, boom. Wow, I bet you 250. How'd that happen? Steps are the same way. If you're tired of the life you're living, you're tired of what's been going on, do this. Watch what happens. Let God demonstrate through you what God can do. Powerful stuff. Now I get an exercise. I ask God to remove my fear and direct my attention to what God had me be. Your third step decision. In the third step, you made an agreement with the creator of the universe about what you would be. Here's the agreement. I agreed with God, who I'm already a part of, that God would be my father, my employer, that I would be his child, and that I would be his actor. So anytime I'm afraid, I ask God to remove the fear and remind me what I'm supposed to be. Be, not do, but be. And the promise is that once I will commence to outgrow fear. That's all I got. Thank you. God bless you.
Okay. Just definitely had to share that. It's powerful. All right, real quick before we run out of time, and then if y'all want to say anything, we can talk about it. Homework. So your homework is now going to be...
You're muted, Lindsay.
Say. You just called me Lindsay.
I know.
No, that's good.
It's a compliment.
Right?
Compliment for
I know, I love it. All right, so I don't know how I got muted or when I got muted, but real quick before you run out of time, and then we can share if anybody wants to share something. Homework is you're going to be writing down your assets now. The first set of assets are going to be ones that you have acquired over the years in kind of like direct proportion to your character defects. Let's say, for instance, I've always had a financial insecurity because my mom worked too much. She was never home. She always had 2 jobs. I always had to cook dinner and take care of my brothers, and we never had anything. And I grew up with like millionaire grandparents, but my mom refused to get money from them. She was like, I'm going to do this on my own. So we never had anything. When I got to go over to my grandparents, it was better, but she tried to keep us away from them. Anyways, long story short, so it made my drive to go be successful. Even minus my alcoholism and addiction, I am a very hard worker. So that is my work ethic is huge because of my mom. So the character defects of having those financial insecurity produced a very strong work ethic. So find things that you're like, whether you're strong financially, whether you're good with money, or you're compassionate with people because you never had compassion from your family members before. Whatever it is, like the opposite of some character defects. And then the ones that you know that you have now. Then the other after you find those that you are walking in today, I want you to identify some of your worst character defects. You will find it on the internet. For the most part, you will find, and you probably have seen it already, character defects alongside their assets. So I want you to find your deepest character defects that you have noticed were in most every single relationship, and find its asset. And I want you to start praying over, not your character defects, because we'll do that next week. Stop it. But I want you to start praying over these assets. God, help me be a more honest person. This is mine. God, help me not judge people. Help me to be humble instead of so dang self-righteous. Silly girl. That's it. And then just listen to the rest of that speaker tape. It's awesome. The other one I played was Sandy Beach, Step 5, if you want to listen to it in its entirety. The beginning of it really just talks like for 20 minutes over like step 1 and 2 and 3. But it's pretty good. Sandy Beach is awesome. But definitely want you to listen to that Mark Houston one. And ladies, this is Andrea. I've been working with Andrea for a minute. How long has it been? I think we've known each other for about 6 months, right?
It's gotta be 8.
8, yeah. Awesome. So,
Awesome.
yeah. So this is Kelly and Tyreen. We have Deanna and Kara, and then you've seen Jen on here. I did have another sponsee that I've known for about 8 months as well that was going to join us today, but for whatever reason she wasn't able to. So, but yep, you'll be seeing her on Tuesdays.
Andrea, I know I've seen you in other meetings. I recognize the name.
You're Kelly? You recognize the dog?
I may not have been in.
Yeah, because she hardly ever has her camera on.
Oh, because I usually don't have my camera on. Anyway, well, hi, Kelly. Hi, is it Tyreen?
Tyreen.
Tyreen.
Tyreen?
I've seen the dog before. Yeah, it looks familiar.
I wonder which meeting.
I don't recall. Did a couple of them.
Yeah.
So anybody want to share on anything that we heard today?
I love how he said in the beginning, imagine being on life support for your oxygen.
Yeah.
Someone stepping on it. And I'm like, that's how I've been feeling lately. I feel like my connection to God is just,
Yeah.
I'm struggling with it, and I don't get it, because that was my least, I don't know what you call it. It's the thing that I had the least trouble with. I believed in God, and I had no fears. I had faith. And lately, this past several weeks, I've just been going downhill, and I need to get someone to step off that oxygen thing, because I'm definitely having fears that I shouldn't be having right now. And you know, it's so true. It made so much sense when he said that.
Good.
I really liked that analogy he did also. It was really, really good to hear. I really liked how he changed it to I instead of we.
Yeah.
It made it more real for me.
Yep. Okay. And then Andrea, and then like furthering on, Mark Houston. Oh, I forgot to. Well, I'll just keep it on now. In the beginning of step 5, and he talks about all these things that we have been acquiring, and then we put our finger on our personal, some of the weak items in our personal inventory. So get that fear inventory done, and then when we do that step 5, it says And he emphasized this very heavily. Now these are about to be cast out. And I don't know how it works. I mean, it's crazy how it works. Like when I seen these steps on the wall when I first came in the room, I'm like, how is this going to help me? That doesn't make any sense. But it does. It's like something on the inside of us truly just throws these things. I think I heard from somebody else. It might even have been on the rest of Sandy Beach's tape. And he said to cast. And he's like, not like casting like you're going fishing. Or casting like you're just throwing something. He's like, no, like with full speed. He was talking about the fighters, the jets. And they have this thing that it connects to them. And they have to be propelled out. And without that, they wouldn't get very far. And it can throw them like a mile or so. And he said, that's what you need.
Is it kind of like casting out our character defects is what we're praying for? So when he says cast out, could it be like, I think of an exorcism, how they spray the holy water and they're casting the evil out of you.
Yeah, but no, because we're not on character defects. Right now, we're casting out these resentments. We're casting out these fears. We're casting out all those weak items. And yes, character defects are involved too. But the biggest thing is, that what's keeping us blocked is those resentments. And we got to get rid of them. But yes, character defects are involved too. Yes, you're right. So that is a good analogy or to think of too is exorcise the demons.
Got a lot of them lately.
That's funny. That's good though, yeah. But like throwing them off of you, not to get biblical or scriptural or anything, but where there's the scripture and I don't know what it is, but it says throw off every weight that so easily hinders you. Make every effort to throw off every weight that easily hinders you. Like, if it's weighing me down, I got to get rid of it. Or else I can't walk. I can't run with speed. I'm hindered. And we got to get rid of those things. It's truly keeping us held down. All right.